Welcome one, welcome all to Sovereign Soil. I am Mike, aka Veteran Crypto, and with me today for a very special interview is a very old friend of mine. Very old.
Thanks a lot.
Mike, Mike, how's it going, brother?
Excellent. Great to see you, Mike.
So, just a little bit of background on me and Mike is we've known each other for over 20 years now. We met back before before your boys were born.
Oh
Um,
four.
yeah, when we were doing the medical training to be on the ski patrol up at the canyons,
Oh
and
five. Yeah. Yep.
uh,
Yep.
and so yeah, we've known each other for quite a while. But in that time, you have a very diverse background. Everything from real estate flipping to the urban survival guide to dry fire training cards to now red dot training. Like on how to transition to red dot. And also, you have this that I was unaware of. That is a NeuroSync protocol. Tell us a little bit about this because it's talking about a brain reset for ADHD.
Yeah. So I just over 2014ish. I had the consequences of way too many concussions combined with ADHD catch up with me, and some of those I got with you. And
It's true. It's true. I took you down some pretty crazy slopes up there on the at the ski resort.
I never let ability keep me from doing stuff with you. I was
Don't
more than
don't
willing to
don't
go face
don't
first.
let that little thing like skill or anything get in the way of a good time.
Never. Um, yeah, so I had vertigo almost every night. My eyes
Mhm.
stopped tracking correctly. Had random pains. Basically, emotional issues where I was getting angry a lot when I didn't
Mhm.
want to, and sleep issues, and it really sucked. And I ended up going deep down the rabbit hole into neurology.
Yeah.
And in my first neurology session, the 6 months prior, I hadn't been able to do a single push up without pain. And with about 15, 20 minutes of vision and balance drills, I was able to do 20 push ups. And it didn't make any sense to me that stuff with my eyes and my inner ears would impact my shoulder.
Yeah.
And so I started digging into it and I started using some of the drills that helped me with concussions with other shooters. And over time, I refined a protocol that helped people make tremendous improvements, basically squeezing 2 to 3 days of live training into 5 to 10 minutes
Yeah.
and 288 times faster improvement in speed and accuracy. And so uh, taught in the tactical world, military and law enforcement, special operations, civilian self-defense competition, and people kept coming back to me saying, "Hey, you know that stuff that you taught me for shooting? Uh, my ADHD doesn't bug me anymore, or I can read again, and I couldn't read for years after concussions, or
Yeah,
all of these crazy
just
things."
because of attention, and it wasn't that they couldn't read the words. They just attention wise, they couldn't sit still long enough to read.
Oh no, actually, a lot of it was control of their eyes.
Oh,
So
okay.
so instead of their eyes being pointed at the text on the page,
Mhm.
they'd either be pointed in front of or behind the words, and
Mhm.
so things would get go back and forth between being single and double, or the eyes
Oh,
wouldn't move at the same speed, and so the words would separate and come together and separate and come together, and it mimics dyslexia a lot of times. So ended up writing the book, Unleash ADHD is your $6 million superpower. Uh, Take off on the $6 million man and rebuilding yourself
mhm.
after things happen, and it has helped a ton of people. And so people who think they've tried everything to improve focus and attention and brain fog and decision fatigue and getting results in minutes instead of months.
So walk us through. So it looks like, well, I mean, obviously we're going to be talking about your shooting system,
Yeah,
but
and they tie in directly. So
yeah, and that's kind of, and this is the website, for those of you out there that are interested. It's reddotmastery.com. So I mean, walk us through. I mean, what makes this different? Because I mean, I am somewhat familiar with it. I know that you have quite a few different organizations and high level individuals that swear by it. But what what is this exactly, and what makes it different than just range time? Because a lot of people, I was taught all through my military career, is you go to the range and you put a bunch of rounds down range, and you work on fundamentals and sight picture, sight alignment, trigger squeeze, all the usual suspects, and just through repetition you get better. So I mean, what makes this different than that?
yeah, so I'll give you an example right now. So I've got my pistol here. If we think about shooting
Yeah.
in a high stress situation, so
Mhm.
what you talked about was basically brute force repetition,
Yeah.
where you do something over and over and over and over and over again,
Yeah.
and you get warmed up, and you shoot better at the end than you did at the beginning. And in a counter ambush, counter assault, counter mugging situation, you don't have that warm up time. You've got to perform perfectly with the first rep.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that actually Colonel Cooper alluded to this, he said that we aim with our presentation and then we verify with our eyes.
Mhm.
And more specifically, we aim with our inner ear and we verify and correct with our eyes. So a lot of times, if the eyes and the ears aren't in agreement with each other, we'll come up like this and then have to adjust.
Yeah.
And we just, that creates frustration. And a lot of times we won't be able to find the dot when that happens. And so if we can get the inner ears and the eyes on the same page about which direction is straight ahead, then the dot automatically appears between our dominant eye and the target instead of having to search for it.
Gotcha.
And the only difference between the red dot and irons is
Yeah.
that with irons, you can be way off and see what you need to do to correct.
Mhm.
And with the red dot, you got to be pretty darn close to on, or you're not going to see the dot.
Gotcha.
If we look at with iron sights, the sights point back to the face.
Yeah.
And if they're pointed back to the iris or the blue, brown, green part of the eye,
Mhm.
we're going to be able to see the dot. If it's pointed to the whites of the eyes or the bridge of the nose, we're not going to be
Yeah.
able to see it.
Yeah.
So the red dots reward a perfect presentation and they penalize any mistakes that we make whatsoever.
Gotcha. Well, before we get too far into this, give us your credentials, because I know that I mean, since I've seen you last, you've racked up quite the list of credentials. So, if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving us a little bit of background on you and the individuals that helped build this system with you.
Yeah. So I'm a force science analyst in human factors and lethal force encounters. And it's
Mhm.
basically what improves under life and death stress and what drops off under life and death stress so that
Yeah.
we can,
Fine motor
uh,
skills, things like that. Yeah.
yeah, customize our training and take advantage of the strengths and avoid the weaknesses.
Gotcha.
I'm
Or
a,
mitigate the negatives.
yeah, master instructor with Ken Murray with Armature or the Force, not Force, Reality Based Training Association.
Mm.
And Ken's one of the co-founders of Simunitions and basically the granddaddy of force on force training.
Mm.
And so Ken and I go around the country and train military and law enforcement instructors on how to run force on force training so that it is both safe, so that people don't get killed or injured.
That's always a good
And yeah,
thing.
well, there's a shocking number of training fatalities every year because
Oh,
people just
yeah.
they it's hubris. They think that they know what they're doing, and they make human mistakes because they're human. And
Yeah.
you absolutely have to take the human element out of it, or mistakes happen.
Yeah.
And then effective, because a lot of things, well, we're both of the age where we went through crappy force on force training with attic monkeys and gotchas of all sorts, and
Oh yeah.
things that create training scars where you look for bad guys in places where they're never really going to occur, and take things that don't transfer from the game world to the real world.
Oh
And
yeah.
so we focus a lot on that of, all right, is this training going to save lives, or is it going to create an aversion to getting in a fight in the future?
Gotcha. So what are some of the other credentials that you have? Because like I said, I mean, there was quite the laundry list.
Yeah. Well, let's see. UT.
Oh, lost your mic again. So while you're messing with that, I'll rattle some of them off. So a master level IDPA shooter, a range master and NRA instructor, a UTM and RBTA military and law enforcement force on force master instructor, a Force Science Institute analyst of human factors, like you mentioned, and lethal force encounters, and a student of performance neurology.
Yep.
All right,
That.
I can hear you. So, and then I don't know if these are your business partners, but Marcus Custer and Eric Gelhaus.
Gelhaus. Yeah, they were my co-authors on
Okay.
the book Red Dot Mastery.
Well, and I
And
know Marcus from your website. I don't know him personally, but a U.S. Special Forces, and it was a
yep.
custom service special agent, Homeland Security Investigations criminal investigator, and currently runs Law Enforcement Options LLC, which trains firearm instructors from coast to coast. And then Eric from CougarMountainSolutions.com is a U.S. Army veteran with 3 decades of law enforcement experience, finishing his law enforcement career as a supervisor of the firearms training program for a large California sheriff's office. He is a gun sight range master and developer of Gunsight's optics program. So you definitely have some individuals with a deep background with handling firearms and firearms instruction.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't ask for 2 better guys to
Nice.
do the book with. And they, yeah, they'd both been using red dots for at least a decade, and had suffered through all the crap and the bad equipment and the evolution of the technology over time, from where it was basically relegated to competition to being usable for duty and dependable.
Well, I know a big, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I'm not a huge pistol guy. I'm actually kind of terrible with them. I'm better with a long gun, but I know for a long time the red dot pistol optics were just like they were kind of shit. I mean, they the zero got knocked off easy. They were fragile as shit. It's just they just really weren't that good. But more recently, it seems like they've gotten a lot more rugged. They hold zero a lot better. If they get smacked around and things like that, and they seem like they're a lot better these days than they used to be. I mean, is that a correct assumption?
Yeah. So one of the big things, if you think about what's happening, this is going back all the way and then coming forward in less than 1/10 of a second.
Yeah.
And that the G forces. So a lot of times on Amazon, you'll see that optics have been tested to 1,000 Gs or 1,500 Gs.
Yeah.
Well, the optic is being subjected to between 5,000 and 13,000 Gs.
Holy
every
shit.
time the gun fires. So if you see that something's been tested to 1,000 or 2,000 Gs, that's just not enough.
Okay.
And you might get lucky, and it might work for a long time, or you might not. But the the serious players in the market are testing their optics to much higher G forces.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. I mean, it's something a lot of people wouldn't think about.
No,
It's
uh,
you
a
know is
thousand G's is a lot. I mean, I don't want to weigh 1,000 times what I do.
honestly, I would have thought that 1,000 G's is about what it would be. I mean, I wouldn't think 13,000 G's.
Oh, I know.
Is what that thing is being subjected to.
It's insane numbers.
No, it freaking sounds like it. So, well, let's get into this a little bit here. So, we talked about the brute force, training. So that's the old school, like I was trained, where you go to the range and you spend all day, blasting through thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds of taxpayers' money, and your whole unit is out there and you're all on the line, and the range master is giving you the signals, and you're blasting away and everybody's having a heyday, and that's brute force training. So brute force versus the neurology shift. So traditional training tells people that just drawing until muscle memory takes over. So your approach uses brain science to bypass that friction, training the visual pathways so that the dot automatically appears between the dominant eye and the target. So can you give us like a little bit of a breakdown of how exactly does that occur?
Yeah, there's two big parts to it. One is eye dominance. And most people think that we're either right eye dominant or left eye dominant. But there's 4 types of eye dominance that matter.
And then there's the third eye. There's the third eye dominance.
Yeah, that's actually what cyclopean dominance.
Yeah.
So that's 11% of the population.
All right.
Same.
All right.
Yeah, same percentage as the people who are left-handed.
Okay.
So it's not unheard of. But what happens is the signals or the images from the 2 eyes go back to the visual cortex, and it combines them into a hybrid third image that doesn't exist in reality. And then people try to aim with that hybrid third image, and they get really frustrated because they cannot line up the sights.
Yeah.
And then the number 4 is shared dominance. And so if with cyclopean, the sights, the reverse sight picture lines up with the bridge of the nose, shared eye dominance, it's lining up with the corner of the eye. So you can think of it like 60% one eye and 40% of the other. And the problem with that is if the reverse sight picture doesn't line up with the iris of the eye, we're not going to see the dot. So one of the first things we do is stabilize eye dominance. And I created a tool. It's a retractable string with glittery beads on it. And by looking at the beads and going back and forth, it gets the eyes to, it gets the brain to stabilize eye dominance to a single eye.
I can see how that would work, because if you're focusing on each of those beads, out and back in, then basically you're training both your eyes to focus on a single point. And if that's where the red dot is going to be, as you're pressing out, then it would get them to where they get used to locking on to the same place in space. Am I correct in that?
It's more the visual processing than it is the basically what will happen is, instead of the brain using 50-50 and lining up the sights here, or 60-40 and lining up the sights here, it decides which eye is dominant and lines up the sight with that eye.
Okay.
And so that's an important part of it. And then the second thing is it's super, super common for people to have perceptual distortions in distance and direction. And anybody who's played darts or golf knows this, because if we were perfect with our aim and our determination of direction, we'd hit the bullseye with darts every single time, or we'd have a vertical string straight up and down. But the reality is we end up with stuff all over the place because our brain's a little bit confused about which direction straight ahead is.
Okay.
And so people can test this at home. If you pick an object like a light switch or a book or frame of a door, and go ahead and cover your non-dominant eye, look at it, shut your eyes, and then point at it, and then open your eyes and verify whether you're high, low, right, or left.
Mhm.
Most people are going to be 2, 3, 4 finger widths away,
I
and
know
they're
that's one thing that we did in the Marine Corps is when we were on the range is to test our a natural point of aim is what they called it. Is you'd be down in the prone and you'd get in your good body position and to test that you were actually relaxed and and you were in your natural point of aim, they'd have you line up your iron sights and then they'd have you close your eyes, take a breath in, take a breath out, and open your eyes, and you should still be center mass on the target. If you're off at all, then that means that you're not in your natural body position, and you're even just slightly, you're like muscling to get on the target. So it's going to make it to where it's not, you're just not naturally in the spot that you need to be, or where you should be, I should say.
so imagine this. Uh, that natural point of aim is built on sensory integration.
Mm,
And if sensory integration is off, we're only going to have one. Uh, we're only going to be able to build one position that gives us natural point of aim.
mm.
When sensory integration is dialed in perfectly,
Yeah.
you can basically do any body position and still have natural point of aim.
So basically, what
So
I
it's
was talking
the
about is a static position, a natural point of aim in a static position, and what you're talking about is more
yeah.
of a dynamic natural point of aim.
Well, people do the same thing with pistols. They'll say, "All right, drawing every time off to the side and having to adjust, drawing,
Yeah,
adjust, drawing,
yeah.
adjust." So why not just move this foot forward or this foot back so that you come up straight on target every time?
Well, but I
Well,
mean, if you're in a real life situation and something a threat presents itself from the side, are you going to like jump and get in
that's
that
exactly
stance?
right.
Yeah, it's
It
like it doesn't make sense.
it creates a fragile technique.
Yes.
And so what we want to do is get the sensory integration right so that
You're
no
great as
matter
a range bunny. It makes you great as a range bunny, but in a real life situation, not so much.
yeah, and when everything's working correctly, then regardless of the angle
Hmm.
and foot position, we're going to be able to bring up the dot between our dominant eye and the target.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, let's move on to target focus versus dot focus. So the number one trap for iron sight shooters is hunting for the dot or staring at the glass window instead of remaining locked, into the target plane. So tell us how that plays into the into the program.
Well, with the dot, you want to remain not only target focused, but you want your eyes aligned with the target.
Okay.
So there's two different things. One is what distance is clear, the focal length of the eye,
Okay.
and we want that to be the target.
Mhm.
We also want our eyes to be pointed at the target and not pointed at the optic.
Mhm. So do you
So,
like whenever you're shooting? I know that I've heard people debate this for quite some time. Do you keep both eyes open or do you close one eye?
definitely keep both eyes open.
Okay, because I know a lot of people, they they do the close one eye, and so it's. But I've heard you and many other people say that you want both eyes open. One, because if you're in a real life situation and you're shooting, you don't want to close one eye and lose the peripheral vision, what's going on that side of the world. You want to have situational awareness, and if you're closing one eye, you only have 50% of what you otherwise would.
Yeah, the bigger challenge isn't that we're going to be well, the reality is most people aren't going to be able to close their eye in a life and death situation
Hmm.
because the brain is hardwired for survival, and it pretty much always thinks that it's better to have both eyes open than one eye closed. in a survival situation. So that leaves us with a dilemma. When do we learn how to shoot with both eyes open? Do we do it in our living room with dry fire when there's no stress? Or do we learn how to do it when lives depend on performance?
I mean, I just
And
had my two business partners up here, like last weekend before. David, the guy in the chat, they were up here and we were out on the range, and that, I mean, that's what I was talking to him about. Is, you kind of train how you fight, so you don't want to have, a resting heart rate, and you're just calm and you're relaxed. And a lot of times in the military, we had stress tests where we had to
mhm.
drag 250-pound dummies, and then you had to low crawl through the dirt, and they're screaming at you and kicking dirt in your face, and getting your heart rate up and getting you frustrated and pissed off, and your hands are shaking because your heart's going and your adrenaline's going. You got dirt in your face, and then you have to get up and you have to try to shoot. When your arms are shaking and your heart's going, you're breathing heavy, and that's how you want to train like that, because potentially that's how you're gonna have to operate under those stresses. Because if you're actually getting shot at, my David, a couple of weeks ago, where he lives down in Florida, he was out on a date, sitting by the coast there on a park bench, after they left a bar at night, and there was a shooting, and bullets were like whizzing past his head, him and his date, and he experienced the angry bees, because he was trying to explain the sound of the bullets, and I'm like, yeah, we call them angry bees because they're like,
Yep.
buzz, buzz. And he ran and took cover like he should have, because he wasn't armed or anything, got his date to safety and stuff like that. But I was telling him, I was like, okay, so what if you had a firearm? Would you have been able to pull it? Would you have the frame of mind to be able to engage, assess the situation, to know your backdrop is there innocent people that you potentially, if you miss, that you're going to hit. There's a lot of stuff. Your heart rate's going, your breathing's elevated. You got that tunnel vision going because of adrenaline. There's a lot of stuff going on. What how do you feel that you could have performed? And he kind of went through it, and it's like there's a lot to it.
Yeah. Yeah, there definitely is.
Yeah, he says, yeah, that was no fun. He said, I saw the shooter when I was getting my date and myself to safety. Yeah, he heard the bullets and got her to safety. But yeah, it was, I'm sure, very interesting. But you were saying, so with these stresses in mind and being caught off guard, having to assess the situation. Is there, a single shooter, multiple shooters? What scenario are you in? Are you just a civilian in daily life? Are you a law enforcement officer that has never had to draw their weapon in the, their duty weapon in the line of service? Military. Are you in a combat zone? There's so many different things, in different scenarios. How do you train somebody for something like that? Or is that something that you deal with? Because I know that you deal with a lot of, government, military, and law enforcement in your training. How do you integrate your training into that to assist them to be more effective and, safer and as those situations occur?
Yeah, so it's basically a step-by-step process. You can think of it as inoculation.
Mhm.
So how do you inoculate someone to all of the factors that they're going to be exposed to in a situation where lives depend on performance?
Mhm.
And historically, one of the approaches, and I mean, it was basically what we did growing up. You get thrown in the deep end, and some
Yeah.
people survive, and most people don't.
It's like that saying, be was it beware the old man that where with an occupation uh, where men die young, or something like that. I forget how it
Yeah,
goes. So yeah, if you meet an old guy that's like a combat vet, he's probably somebody that you don't want to mess with, because if he's been able to make it through all those years in a combat zone, he's probably really tricky or really deadly, one of
yeah.
the two.
Yeah, I've known more than one guy who they decided it was time to quit when they started getting holes in their backpack.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
like, huh? They used to miss me because I was faster.
it happens. It happens.
And uh, but yeah, so the basically breaking stuff down and
Mhm.
then adding it in one at a time. And the foundation of all of that is neurology
Yeah.
and getting the that foundation taken care of. And another example is shooting on the move. And the traditional thinking is that you either move then shoot, or shoot and then move, but you don't do both at the same time.
I
And
do.
one of the biggest reasons for that is because of uh, problems or mismatches between the inner ear and the eye.
Mhm.
And when the brain is depending on the eyes for balance, then there isn't enough bandwidth for aiming as well.
Mhm.
When the inner ears are able to handle the entire weight of balance, now all of a sudden there's bandwidth for making aimed shots while moving at a speed that matters to cover.
Mhm.
And so about a decade ago, a special training cadre had me create a training to get their guys shooting on the move better than what they were currently able to get guys shooting flat footed.
Yeah.
And it was a step by step process of improving balance, improving vision, improving hand eye coordination, improving fundamentals. And then they added in two other components to it. Uh, the other one was stress.
Mhm.
So ramping up the stress level, uh, sometimes with electric stimulus or other mechanisms.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Keep going.
Yeah. And then instead of shooting a prescribed course of fire
Mhm.
or shooting to a beep, it's making decisions based on what you see, whether to shoot, keep shooting, or stop shooting.
Mhm.
And that change from the shoot don't shoot decision being driven by hearing a beep
Mhm.
and seeing static targets to having targets that change status in real time
Mhm.
is it's a big difference, and it's a big gap that most people have in their training.
Well, it really is because the old style of just static threat, not a threat targets where like they pop up and things like that is it gets you wired to where once you decide that something isn't a threat, you eliminate it from your thought process. It's like, okay, it wasn't a threat then, it's not a threat anymore.
Yeah,
Whereas in combat, and I'll use this as an example. You see, what you think is a female in a burqa, and you think, oh, it's not a threat, but it's a guy, a combatant with a burqa on. So it's like just because something doesn't initially present itself as a threat, that can change. I mean, you know, animals, all kinds of stuff can, maybe you didn't notice at first, but they have explosives on them, or they didn't have a weapon, but because you shot somebody that they knew, now they've picked up a weapon and now they are a threat. So that threat, no threat, I never really liked that because it's a binary thought process of and once the brain decides that something's not a threat, it's a lot harder to make that split second decision and tell your brain no, that is a threat now.
yeah. Even I mean, there's a lot uh, a video of reanimation. So somebody gets shot, fall to the ground, their head's
Mhm.
level with their heart, the initial shock wears off, they reanimate, they're back in the fight. And
I've seen people shot multiple times and they're still combat effective, and it's
yeah,
adrenaline, and depending on where they get hit, I mean, somebody can fight for quite a while after they've been hit a couple times.
Yeah, especially with some of the cocktails the that turds take going in before they go in to do stuff.
Oh yeah, no, it's nuts. But we won't go too far down that road. But well, let's jump to solving visual challenges. How red dots interact with an astigmatism, making the dot look like a blurry starburst, age-related vision changes, and that cross-eye dominance that you were talking about. So how do you solve for those?
That's a lot of stuff. I'll take them one
Yeah,
at a time.
no, by all
So
means.
astigmatism. Uh, one tip on astigmatism. It's super common. So one of the things that you want to do is figure out. Let me back up a second. It's really common for people to think that they've got a problem with their optic when they have astigmatism. And so, three tests that you can do. Number one is look at the dot with the camera on your phone. And if it's a dot instead of a starburst or a blur, then it's
Mm,
your eyes and not the dot. Second thing is you can hold a flashlight out and aim it at your eye. And when your pupil constricts, if the dot gets crisp, then you know that you've got astigmatism and it's not a problem with the optic. And number three is you can take your finger and pinch down so you're looking through a teeny tiny little hole at the dot.
yeah.
And if it goes from being a starburst or a blur to a crisp dot, then again, you know you've got astigmatism.
Mm,
So with astigmatism, one of the easiest ways to think about it is just think about it like an oversized dot. And maybe at one distance, you use the top of the blur to aim, or the middle of the blur, or the bottom of the blur. But for most people at most distances, it's annoying. It really doesn't matter on target. The the very few people are able to shoot tight enough groups
mm.
to shoot tighter groups than the size of their blur.
Yeah. Well, in a pistol, I mean, I was telling my buddies when they were up here, a pistol is not meant to reach out and touch somebody. A pistol is, I mean, what would you say as far as distance? I usually tell people for the average shooter, 50 feet. Anything outside of 50 feet, you're the average person isn't going to be effective.
Yeah, I still I encourage people to set a standard of 25-yard headshots
Okay,
and being able to make those. Uh,
so about
and
about
all it
75.
is yeah, it's an execution of fundamentals. Now, the reality is that's less than 5 to 10% of the shooting population. So it's
Exactly.
something to strive for. It's not something that most people can do. But my closest steel that I have at my house is at 65 yards,
Hmm.
and steel out to 130 yards that I engage with pistol on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And the drops just aren't that big of a deal. I mean, um, at 100 yards, if you put irons on the throat, you're going to hit
Yeah.
somewhere on the torso, regardless of muzzle velocity.
Oh
So
no,
it's
no,
it's not.
gotcha. But just most people don't have the skill sets, when it comes to there's like a natural point of aim, trigger squeeze, the basic fundamentals. And then you add to that like what we were talking about, adrenaline, heart rate, just the stresses of whatever's going on where they're having to pull their weapon, for self-defense. You know, it greatly reduces the distance that you're going to be effective. So, I tend to tell people if you can just focus on about 50 feet, 50 to 75 feet, and you can, be effective, as a gun bunny at that range, or a range bunny, then, if you can, take it to the next level with systems like yours, then you're going to have a lot better chance to retain that effectiveness at those ranges. But just like you were saying, most people, the majority of the population out there, no matter how sexy the optic is on your weapon, it's just you're not going to be able to engage targets past that distance effectively or as effectively.
Yeah. The so ironically, the core skills to make headshots at 25 yards, torso at 50 to 100 yards, is shooting 1-inch groups at 6 to 10 feet.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, it's just stretching it out and the angles increase. If you can't do that, there's no reason to stretch it out. You got fundamentals that you can work on at 6 feet with airsoft.
Exactly. Or dry fire.
Yeah.
With the those laser systems and stuff like that.
Yep.
So yeah, no,
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, I know that I remember when those first came out. You were telling me about those, and yeah, I definitely there's my pistol. I actually ordered one because I want to start doing the dry fire training with it because I cringe every time I shoot ammo these days with like the prices of ammo. So
Yeah.
I just having that
It's hard when you got to buy your own, isn't it?
It is. It's like when you're in the military and you can just freaking, la 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 la, freaking, three amigos, and you're just like running around shooting ammo like it's cool. As a civilian, it's like, how much a box? So yeah, it's like so no, those dry fire systems are great because they reset the trigger. The laser comes out. You set up your phone and it registers where you hit. Some of them even will like critique you and tell you what you're doing wrong. I mean, there's a lot of rudiment or base level fundamentals that you can learn with those, and then use systems like yours to just take it to a whole nother level.
Yeah. Let's see. So astigmatism.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
There's good thing we both have ADHD.
Right? We'll be talking about everything.
So there's a couple of things with astigmatism and color and coatings. So you can have 5 lenses that are all using the same wavelength of red, and one might be a star, one might be a blur, one might be 2 dots, and one might be perfect. And it's because of the 5, 10 or more layers of coatings that the manufacturers put on the lenses. So one of the things that I really encourage people to do is get hands-on with optics before they buy them. And then we've got colors.
I've told people many times because they'll ask me like, what handgun to get. So it's the same with optics. It sounds like.
Yep.
And I'm like, go to the range. They'll let you rent, different handguns, and I'm sure that they probably have some that have different dots on them to where you can try the different ones out.
Yeah, and then we've got 4 different colors right now for pistol-mounted optics. We've got red and green, and green is typically better for most people with astigmatism, but like for me, red's better than green. Then we've got blue. Cool blue from Lucid Optics, which is absolutely the best for people with astigmatism, pretty much across the board. And then Holosun has gold, or it's actually goldenrod. And goldenrod, if you think about the red cones and the green cones in the eyes, right smack dab in the middle is the color goldenrod. And goldenrod activates the most total number of red and green cones at the same time.
Okay.
And so it can be good for people who are colorblind, and it can be it's a good one to check out also. The gold is more expensive and the blue is more expensive because of the laser technology and just the cost of the dyes for the manufacturing process. Not specific to those colors, just because of demand. So those are both still niche and probably not going to be mainstream for a few years, but they're awesome options for people with astigmatism.
Okay. All right.
Um, let's see. What was the next thing after astigmatism?
For the astigmatism was a age-related vision changes in cross-eye
Yeah. All right. So, presbyopia or arms getting too short. Uh, the
the T-Rex arms.
yeah, dots are awesome for people who need to wear readers because of the fact that you don't have to cock your head up to see the front sight. You just
Um,
uh,
I'm getting
have
there.
a neutral head position and go to town.
That's why it's getting hard for me to harder for me to shoot pistol. Is my eyes are getting to a point. I got my readers right here. So yeah,
Oh man, if only you knew somebody with training on how to improve vision.
Yeah, I'll probably have to talk to you after the show or something because I don't use them very often, but especially like in low light, trying
Mhm.
to read in low light, I catch myself, doing that, looking down my nose thing, or I end up having like if I'm trying to read directions or ingredients on something, like on food when I'm cooking. A lot of times I have to grab the readers just so I can actually read it. So you were
Yep.
saying age related issues as it pertains to red dot and shooting.
Yeah. So the beautiful thing is you don't need the correction. You don't need the top focal lenses. You just look through the optic at the target and put the dot where you want the hole. So
Gotcha.
that's an easy one. And then cross dominance is not a problem with pistols. It's a challenge with any shoulder mounted system, but for pistols, the best solution that carries over from calm conditions to extreme stress is you present the pistol to the midline and turn the dominant eye slightly.
Oh.
And it's
You almost use your nose to like block the non-dominant eye, or
you just push straight out from the middle and turn to so that the dominant eye is lined up
present
with
your
the target.
dominant eye.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and the nose doesn't need to block it. It can, but you don't need. It doesn't need to be an exaggerated
Well,
head
some
movement.
of us
It's
some
just
of us
a
have bigger noses than others, so
well, and lenses, especially shooting glasses, nose pieces,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
they can
No,
block it also.
absolutely. All right. Well, let's so fail safe shooting. The occluded dot. What happens when the dot fails? The window gets mud or dirt on it, or the battery dies. So the training covers making effective hits even when you can't actually see through the optic clearly. How does that work?
All right, so a couple of things. First is there is a trend to put an aftermarket cover or tape on the front of the lens and
Mhm.
always shoot with an occluded optic.
Okay.
And back in the early to mid days of Vietnam, when they first came out with red dots, they had basically a PVC pipe with an LED light in the middle of it, and you couldn't see through it. And what they figured out was, you know what? It's better if you can see through it. And so they put glass on red dots.
Yeah.
And for 50 years, people accepted that that was better because it was. And now people are covering the front of their optics again. And it's not a good idea. The
Yeah.
reason it's not a good idea is because 36% of the population, their eyes converge in front of what they're looking at, and another 9% diverge past what they're looking at. And
Okay.
so, if the front of the optic is covered, what we end up with is one eye seeing the target and the other eye seeing the dot, and the dot not being lined up with the target.
Makes
So,
sense.
so we end up with groups off to the right or off to the left,
Well,
depending on
you're trying.
whether.
Basically you're focusing on two separate focal planes.
Yeah, and it's really common, especially if one eye gets covered, like with tape. Uh, so I'll show you. If you take a look at this eye, when I uncover it, it's going to be shot up there, and then it's
Yeah.
going to correct.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And so that's super, super common for
Mhm.
as soon as both eyes can't see the same thing, one of
Mhm.
them's going to drift off in some direction or the other, depending on residual muscle tension.
Got a lazy eye.
Well, I trained out of it, but that was why the things that happened to my brainstem because of all the concussions
Yeah.
caused imbalance in muscle tension if I don't work that part of my brainstem.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
that's why I was having trouble with reading because my eyes would be pointed at two different words at the same time.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Makes sense.
so with when the dot goes down, we've got some options for what we can do. Number one, we can use the outline of the optic on the target.
Mhm.
And if the optic is bigger than the target, I'm sorry, if the optic is smaller than the target, all we do is we put the optic over the target and press the trigger, and we're going to make hits.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and that's the same logic as using the back face of the slide with irons as a
Mhm.
faster aiming mechanism. The other thing that we can do is tip it at an angle and use the line of the edge of the yeah.
Yeah,
It it
like
it
the
works.
gangster do the gangster thing.
It doesn't have to be that exaggerated. Just a little bit, and then you, as long as you're not seeing either side of the slide, you aim a little bit, you hold a little bit low, and have
Mhm.
the muzzle a little bit higher than the back, and you see the line, and you can put hits on target out to 25 yards pretty darn easily.
Okay.
The other thing is marks on the pistol, and using the entire optic as an aiming reference. And so you can use, so if the glass comes out or the dot fails, you can still use the relative position of the front sight, seeing it through the window
Mhm.
as a way to shoot.
Okay.
Uh, Another way, and this one is gangster, you use, and it works on two-tone guns better than single-tone guns, but this line right here as an aiming reference.
Mhm.
And so there's 8 different methods that we talk about in the book. And the really cool thing on it is we thought we had basically all of the ways to do it. And we started talking to instructors. And they're like, oh, have you tried this before? Have you tried this before? Have you tried this before? And
Mhm.
what we found out was almost everyone we talked to said, well, this one's good, this one's good, this one's good. The rest of them are complete junk. But the 3 that were good and the 5 that were junk varied from person to person. It
Mhm.
all depends on how your brain interprets things visually. And so it's yeah, I really don't like the arrows in the quiver analogy of, hey, let's load somebody down with 100 ways to do something and let them sort through the crap to figure out which one actually works.
Yeah.
But this is one case where people kind of actually need to explore it a little bit,
Mhm.
figure
And
out
find
the
what works
one,
for 'em.
yeah, find what works for them and focus on those.
Gotcha.
But
Alright.
uh, I and other instructors have purposely not changed batteries, hoping that they would go dead at some
Yeah.
point when we needed it, like in a
Yeah.
class, not in a self defense situation,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and uh, just had to run with it. And I've done it teaching classes where I had the dot die
Uh-huh.
between when I checked it in my hotel room in the morning and when I got to the range and started shooting.
Yeah.
And so I get up to demo a string of fire. Oh, there's no dot. Well, got to keep going. And
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, if you get in a firefight, it's like if your dot goes out, you can't call timeout. You gotta freaking
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, all right. So you talk about a one-shot process or a major shortcut to switch from iron sights to a red dot. What is the fundamental neurological shift a shooter has to do to stop hunting for the dot?
We kind of talked about those are already. The
Yeah.
two biggest things are stabilizing eye dominance to an eye
Mm-hmm.
and increasing pointing accuracy.
All
And
right.
by getting the eyes and the inner ears on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And then mechanically, we want the dot mounted as low as possible as we can on the slide. We don't want to use plates for two reasons. Well, three actually. Number one, the G forces, and it's way more points of failure. And the third thing is it lifts up the optic. What we want is to be able to use the exact same presentation to bring either the irons or the dot into alignment between our dominant eye and the target.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is because if you've got a laser pistol, an airsoft gun, or more than one pistol,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you don't want to spend the 3, 5, $600 on each platform to get an optic.
Yeah.
And you still want to be able to go back and forth between them. And so
Mm-hmm.
one of my requirements when I switched to the dot was to be able to have somebody stick a pistol in my holster and me not know what kind of aiming mechanism it had on it and be able to draw and shoot stages of fire
Gotcha.
based on whatever showed up between my eye and the target.
All
And
right.
so that means using factory height sights, not suppressor height sights, unless
Mm-hmm.
everything that you shoot has suppressor height sights on it, and having a low mounted optic so that the exact same presentation delivers
Well,
both of them.
let's actually get into that a little bit. So, what do you do to get people to where they can, maybe, one day be shooting, especially with military and things like that, where one day they're shooting with no suppressor, using a red dot, and then maybe they have to use an elevated red dot, because they're shooting with a suppressor. Do you just always have them shoot with a suppressor, height red dot, or do you have them shoot with both, or what do you do in that situation?
They're probably not going to need to use. They're probably not going to need to raise it up. Depends on the size of the suppressor and
Yeah.
the size of the gun. But if they have to switch back and forth, that's a little bit different situation.
Okay.
But with like with this, I'll switch out the factory barrel with a threaded
Mhm.
barrel and shoot steel suppressed with it, and not have I don't have a problem.
Okay. All right. All right. So, for shooters who have experienced high stress situations, head injuries like TBIs or concussions, or heavy stress startle responses, how does brain based vision training offer an advantage over standard flat range drills?
It's what it is the foundation, and it's a force multiplier.
Hmm.
So everything that we got taught for decades to do, uh, all of the technique stuff, all of the tactics, all of the discipline, all of the high reps, all of the grind stuff out, those are
Hmm.
all built on a foundation of neurology. And so if we are trying to do all of that stuff and the neurology isn't set up correctly,
Hmm.
we're just going to struggle more. It's like driving a sports car with the parking brake on.
Hmm.
Getting neurology right is what lets us release the brakes and get the most amount of gains in performance with the least amount of training. So we still do high quality training. We just don't have to do as much to get the same effect, or we spend the same amount of time and build more skill.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Um, People love to argue about backup iron sights. No, let's see. Hold on. No, we already talked about that. High ROI training at home. So with this is something we talked about, the cost of ammo and range time. Dry fire is where the real skill is built. If someone is sitting at home with a new red dot and wants to spend just 10 minutes tonight upgrading their presentation, what is the single highest return drill they should start with?
It is sensory integration. That and I can run you through it quick if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, this is a simple one. I go through this in the book, and so like I was saying, cover your non-dominant eye, pick something across the room, shut your eyes, point at it, and then open your eyes and see if you're off, high, low, left, or right. And then what you do, you find the nubs at the top of the cheekbone between the ear canal and the eye. It's called the zygomatic arch. And you tap on it 5 or 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
And then the nubs on the back of the head, you rub in a circle a few times in each direction.
Mm-hmm.
Pick the target across the room again, cover your non-dominant eye, close your eye, point, and then open your eyes. There's several levels, not several. There's 5 different levels of that, depending on which part of the vestibular system is having issues. But that is the base level drill to do to improve pointing accuracy and getting the dot to show up between your dominant eye and the target automatically, without having to do a lot of reps to make it happen. The second thing that you can do, and this sounds kind of crazy, but whichever direction you're off, you reach out and snap in the opposite direction. And I'll do this in a room with 100, 200, 300 people all snapping at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's bizarre because surrounded by people, the brain picks up on what you're doing and ignores everyone else.
Oh, gotcha.
But those 2 techniques are 2 of the base ones. From there, I go into, I mean, with some people, I use tuning forks or bone conducting headsets using specific frequencies to stimulate the otoliths or the semicircular canals on one side and not the other. It gets kind of deep pretty quick after those 2.
Oh, gotcha.
But just that, a lot of times it'll have the same impact on improving the presentation as 50, 100, 200 rounds of dry fire or live fire.
Perfect. All right. And so my last one is I know you like talking about the cyclopean eye.
Yeah.
So I want to how does understanding our internal cyclopean eye completely change how we index a weapon on target?
So we've got about 11% of the population have cyclopean dominance. And so for the other 89% of the population, it's not that big of a deal. But what we want to do is figure out how to make the sights come into alignment between our dominant eye and the target so that we're not confused when we try and use the sights. So that's one of the things that I've seen over the years is that a lot of people who have cyclopean dominance, they gravitate towards point shooting because of how incredibly frustrating sighted shooting is. And they are not able to do it quickly. And so they gravitate towards something that they can do quickly, which is point shooting. So if we stabilize the eye dominance to an eye, now all of a sudden point shooting delivers the
I think we lost your sound again.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there you go. I can hear you.
All right. So did you lose me before I finished, or was it
right after I finished? You're right there at the end.
Okay. Anything else? I mean, where did you
Yeah.
lose me? I can say it
So,
again, or
yeah. Basically, it was just like the last like 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
okay. So uh, one of the things that I've seen over the years is a lot of people with cyclopean vision uh, end up gravitating towards point shooting
Mm,
because sighted shooting is so hard when the sights are lining up between the bridge of the nose and the target, and the sight picture isn't what it's supposed to be.
mm,
So if we get the eye stabilized or the dominant stabilized to the dominant eye, all of a sudden, uh, we present the firearm between our dominant eye and the target, and now we can use either point shooting or sighted shooting.
mm. Perfect. Well, let's see if we can. I want to give you a chance to. It looks like this gentleman here. I've seen his face before, so it's. I know that he's a high level shooter. It says Mike Ox is focused on rehashing the same thing, but on understanding how to get to a higher level of performance on a neurological level. So I guess this is Michael Bain, the
Yes.
original first 20 USPSA shooter, IDPAA co-founder, Steel Challenge co-founder, and 20 plus years firearms TV host, including The Best Defense, and a host of Michael Bain on the Radio podcast. So he had a lot of really good things to say about your program. Um, if you are able to, because I know a lot of the organizations that you've worked with, you're probably not able to speak on. But what is just to kind of round things out? What are some of the and I want you to talk about this because I want people to understand that how powerful this is to an extent of the types of organizations and groups that are bringing you to teach people that are high level operators. Because I mean I know that you've worked with some people that have decades of experience in combat environments and in like high level law enforcement teams, things like that. So if they are bringing you in to make their shooters better, that speaks volumes about your program. So what can you tell us about the people that you've worked with and that you've been able to train and maybe some of the results that you've got?
Well, one of the really cool things is uh, I'm incredibly thankful that I stayed in my lane. The reason I'm able to go in and talk to guys who have lived in the tactical world for decades
Mhm.
is because I don't pretend to know their world.
Yeah.
I don't teach them tactics. What I teach them what I teach them is how to use their brain better, how
Yeah.
to release the brakes on performance so that they can do what they know how to do better
Mm,
under extreme stress, and how
mm,
they can teach other people to learn it faster. As far as results, one program I was working with was an aerial gunnery program, and so the progression is they start off simple. Um, Prone shot on target at 50 yards just to verify their dot.
mm,
Then they go to shooting from a chair. Then they go to shooting from a chair on a platform that's hanging from chains that someone's kicking so that it's moving back and forth. Then it's shooting on the back of an ATV or a UTV, and then actually shooting from the helicopter.
mm,
And so there was a guy who was a Marine sniper and law enforcement marksman, very accomplished.
mm.
And of course, he nailed the prone and he nailed the seating, and he got onto the swinging platform, and he was only making about 20% of his hits, which was below standard.
Yeah.
And so I watched him. He finished up that that squad was done. Everyone went back to top off mags. He was angry loading,
Don't load
and
angry. Don't load angry.
And he went back out to the platform and he's kicking the post to make it swing and shooting again and miss, 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 miss. And I go up to him and it's like, you want to try something? And he said, yeah, I'll do anything. I really want to do this. And so I said, all right, here's what we're going to do. Put your finger out in front of you, keep your head still, track it to the right, track it to the left.
Mm.
And he said, all right. And I said, it was smooth in one direction and choppy in the other, right? Yeah. How'd you know that? And I was like, because you're missing the target. And so what was happening? Well, that's a stupid answer, but it was said in jest.
Yeah.
So what happened was one of his eyes was tracking the target perfectly in both directions.
Yeah.
The other one was moving smoothly in one direction and had nystagmus, or it was jumpy in the other direction. So he was seeing, he'd see one target in one direction and two targets when he was moving in the other direction.
So he needs to shoot when it's just going, he's going one direction.
That's phase one. Yeah. Phase two is we do drills to get the brainstem working so that it tracks in both directions, and then he was good to go.
So, well, whenever you're shooting two targets, you shoot in the middle.
No. But that was a 300% improvement in accuracy. It was like 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And so you can't change technique and get that kind of results. The only way to get that kind of results is actually changing the brain driving the process.
Well, I mean, like you said, I mean, the brain and your vision and how your brain perceives what is the target and what's going on is the foundation. It really doesn't matter how good your fundamentals are and things like that. If again, this guy was a highly accomplished shooter. He was Marine Corps sniper. That is not an easy thing to be. The training alone, let alone one with combat experience, and then the experience that it sounded like he had outside the service as well. And if he was struggling like that, imagine how somebody with no fundamentals or very little fundamentals, would have done in that situation. So I mean, that speaks volumes of these what seem to be very simple drills that you can do, or to improve how your brain is perceiving and how your brain is processing that visual information that it's taking in.
Yeah, it's kind of like the $10,000 hammer hit of ship is stuck in port because the engine won't work. And they're paying port fees, they're delayed, all sorts of things. They're racking up huge penalties. So call a guy, he goes in, his fee's $10,000, takes a ball peen hammer, hits the engine one time, and it starts.
Yeah.
And yes, it's simple, but it's simple because he has a deep understanding of how the engine works.
Exactly.
And didn't have to waste time going after 100 things that didn't work.
Well, I mean, and there's something to be said for that. I mean, it's that analogy of you're not paying for him making the engine work. You're paying for his years of knowledge and experience, and that he's able to walk in, tap it with a hammer and it works, as opposed to somebody that you're going to pay $5,000 or less, and they might take a day or two to figure it out. It's you're paying for that person's experience. You're not paying for the result. There's 10 different people that you can call for the same result. It's the quality of the result and the speed of the result.
The speed of the result. Yep.
Well, my colonel, in my my military unit, his little moniker or whatever in his signature block on his emails was good, fast. Was it good, fast,
cheap?
Good, fast, or cheap? Pick two.
Yep.
And so you can have it good and you can have it fast, but it's not going to be cheap. You can have it, cheap and fast, but it's not going to be good. It's you have to pick two. So that's true with a lot of things of quality. It might not be cheap, but how valuable is your time? So, well, I mean, is there anything else that you want to touch on before we wrap up here? Or?
No, this has been great. Thank you.
Oh no, thank you for taking the time and coming on. It's I know that this is going to be valuable for a lot of different people. So, I mean, if you want to check out this system, I mean, if you've been struggling with red dots and that transition from iron sights to using a red dot on your pistol, the website is reddotmastery.com, and I mean that's really all that needs to be said is it's what is it? I saw. Oh, here it is. It's $11 for the digital. A copy of the digital book. It's $27 for the paper, both the paperback and digital. And I mean, how much ammo are you going to blow through trying to figure out a red dot? $11, is half a box of ammo, or like a third of a box of ammo, as far as cost. It's I see the value. It's with the price of ammunition. So, I mean, if you can struggle, or you can roll the dice, and I don't see it as a big roll of the dice because there you have a lot of, and I mean, I know some of the people that you've gone and trained, and you have a lot of very reputable people that are saying that they got a lot, they have decades and decades of experience, even as instructors, saying that they got a lot of value out of this in a very short period of time. So, well, with that, Mike, thanks. I appreciate it, brother. And we need to have you on here again soon, and we can maybe go through some drills or something like that.
Absolutely. Love to.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Well, and give my love to the family, and we'll definitely talk to you soon. Well, everybody out there, if you haven't, please like, follow, and share the channel and the stream. It definitely helps us, grow and get good information out there to everybody. And if you have any ideas of anything that you'd like to see on the show, please, by all means, shoot us a message. If it has to do with firearms and guns, if it has to do with homesteading, if it has to do with emergency preparedness. Actually, I got it right here in my urban survival
Awesome.
guide. This is one of
That's a first edition one.
yeah, it is. It's this is the one that you gave me when you first, like, I think it was like your first box that you got, your first print.
Yep.
And so yeah, no, I actually learned quite a bit on this, and then the survival cards. One of the cards that stuck out in my mind was, and I use it all the time, is people are always talking about water, and if you're going to survive in place, you need to buy all these bottles of water and all this stuff. And I always tell them, I'm like, actually, you don't. If you have a 50-gallon hot water heater and everything goes to shit, you just go turn off the valve that goes out to the the city that supplies it, and you have 50 gallons of good drinking water in your hot water heater. So it's like that's one of the ones that was on one of the playing cards, and I was like, you know what? It's like simple as shit. Instead of keeping flats of water in your house, and you got to constantly rotate through them and things like that.
Yep.
Just walk over, turn off that line, and you got a bunch of drinking water if everything goes to shit, and you don't have to go out and fist fight people for toilet paper. So anyway, I appreciate you, brother. We'll talk soon. Till next time, Veteran Crypto out.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.